This is Mr. Charles. Welcome to my YouTube channel again. I hope you guys are enjoying, the Life of Pi lessons. More importantly, I'm doing two things. I'm teaching you Life of Pi basically through past papers, and I'm teaching you also how to understand the questions. I think that's absolutely important because, many of you will understand Pi I think that's inevitable. You will understand pi. My concern is, do you understand the question? Do you understand the instruction? Do you know what to do? So when they say account for the contradictory response, do you know what to do? When they say explain the state of mind, do you know what to do? And that is my concern for you. So I hope you are able to learn, and obviously please share, like, subscribe as well. Okay. So today we're doing 2021, right? Paper 2, as you can see, November. So ideally, please download the question paper and have this question paper in front of you as you listen to me. So let's go to question 9. It's Life of Pi, contextual, right? Okay, that's the essay question there. And then we have Life of Pi. So the first thing I'm going to do, I am going to identify the chapter as mentioned, chapter 57. So I know that this is this is part 2. So Life of Pi consists of 3 parts, part 1, 2, and 3. This is part 2, and because it's 57, I can assume that Pi is on the lifeboat with Richard Parker and with other animals as well, and he's obviously trying by all means to survive. That's all I know without reading. This is what we call recognition of prior learning. You must be able to understand where we are at in terms of the novel. Okay? So if I see chapter 99, for example, I know that it is near the end, Pi is being rescued, he's being interviewed, etc. So understand the novel in its chronological order. Okay, look at 9.1. And grade 12s, you need to deconstruct the question. You must make the question easy for yourself to understand. Refer to line 4. I had to tame him. So obviously, Pi had to tame Richard Parker. Explain how Pi gained the knowledge that enabled him to tame Richard Parker. 3 marks. So that the idea here is 2 ideas well expressed will give you 3 marks. Okay? 2 ideas well expressed will give you 3 marks. So how did Pi gain knowledge that enabled him to tame RP? You can say that Pi developed a deep sense of knowledge or information at the zoo, at the Pondicherry Zoo. You can go on to say that he spent time observing animals and understanding their habits. You can go on to mention that Pi understood the territorial nature of animals and their respective flight distances, because each animal they have a unique flight distance. So Pi completely understood this dynamic as well. You can even go on to say that Pi had this tendency to anthropomorphize animals. In other words, projecting human qualities upon animals. And Pi's father, Mr. Santos Patel, found this very, dangerous, because according to him, an animal is not your friend. Because of, he's developing a deep sense of love and knowledge at the zoo, spending time observing the animals, understanding territorial nature and flight distance. He was able to coexist with Richard Parker. He was able to tame Richard Parker. So you have to mention that because of what happened and because of his influences, he was This enabled him to tame Richard Parker. Okay, very, very easy question that. 9.2, refer to line 1. I looked at him full of fearful wonder. Fearful wonder, that's an oxymoron because you have fearful and wonder and it's contradictory. Okay? How can something be fearful and wonder at the same time? Account for Pi's contradictory response to Richard Parker. Very easy. So when I see the word contradictory, I know that my answer must consist of two parts. I must have a contrasting word. For example, the word however is going to indicate a shift in meaning. So I will have where I say initially pi was, however pi became, something like that. So your answer must consist of two parts here. Okay? That's absolutely important. So you can say that at first, Pi was fully aware of the danger of RP. He was aware of Richard Parker's brutality and savage nature. However, he is full of wonder because he admires Richard Parker's power and tenacity or strength or beauty. So we have this contradictory way. He is fearful yet amazed by Richard Parker's beauty, power, strength, and tenacity. Okay, very easy question. 9.3. Refer to lines 8 to 10. More likely the. So you have, obviously, you have to go to lines 8 to 10 on top. So that's 5. More likely the worst could happen. The simple passage of time in which his animal toughness would easily outlast my human fragility. So the question is, comment on how these lines influence your response to Pi's current state of mind. I love this question so much because it is referring to you. It says comment on how these lines influence your attitude, not Pi's attitude, not Mama G's attitude. Your, so it's your response to Pi's state of mind. Your response. Okay, this question is posed to you. So I would say that this line influence my attitude because I have a great sense of empathy for Pi, or I admire Pi, or I feel sorry for Pi. Some of you even write that. You say, I feel sorry for Pi. And that's fine. But ideally you want to say the reader had a great sense of empathy for Pi, given that he experienced a traumatic ordeal. Um, we also admire Pi for trying to survive and for trying to control his own destiny. You can even go further to argue that Pi, puts survival before faith. And I think this is important. Remember that Pi is in survival mode, so that will take preference before faith. Yes, he's using faith as a tool to survive, but importantly, that survival will will out or go beyond faith, and that's important here. So you can say that I have great empathy. Given that Pi is in a traumatic experience, I admire his ability to take control of his life, and you explain the idea of that survival is more important than faith. Okay, Pi states that 9.4. Pi states that despair is for even more formidable than a tiger. Discuss the reasons for Pi's statement. In other words, despair is a bigger threat than the tiger. Why is Pi saying that? Yes, he's absolutely fearful, he's living in this um, constant fear of Richard Parker, but he says that this despair is more formidable than a tiger. Discuss the reasons. You can say Pi experiences a great sense of despair when losing his family on, the lifeboat, the ship. So Pi experienced a great sense of despair when losing his family. We can go on to say that he also experienced a great sense of despair when he was all alone in solitude on the lifeboat. You can even go on to say that the constant threat of the animals provided him with despair. So, for example, the hyena brought great despair to him. The encounter with the blind Frenchman, the lack of food, the lack of water, the adverse circumstances. So, for example, it was raining, and all of a sudden, it was scorching hot. So he had to, deal with that as well. But Pi was able to adapt. So you need to speak about his state of despair, losing his family, being alone, experiencing adverse conditions, experiencing, or playing a part in the death of the blind Frenchman, going against his sense of morality. So, for example, Pi is a vegetarian, but he had to forego that because of his ordeal. He drank the blood of the turtle and he ate fish constantly, foregoing his sense of morality in order to survive. And this also brought despair. You can even go on to say, that he completely understood that keeping RP alive was very important. Keeping Richard Parker alive was very important because he kept himself alive as well. So technically, Richard Parker became a coping mechanism to keep himself alive. There's a lot you can write about there. Okay? 9.5, refer to line 1. By the time morning came, my grim decision was taken. Explain what prompted Pi to make his decision. So here, it is the decision to leave the island, to leave the algae island. You need to read, guys. Some of you are not even familiar with the island. So Pi came across an island, and many of you argue it was an illusion, and that's fine. But Pi came across an island. You need to know these things. So explain what made him leave the island. Okay, a very easy question. For 3 marks, you can say that Pi discovered a human tooth while eating fruit on the island. So I think he ate an apple, and then as eating the apple, he discovered a human tooth inside of the apple, and this gave him like an indication that yay, this island is dangerous, it's evil. Moreover, at night the island, emitted an acid, so the soil became acid at night, and that this too, provided him with an indication that yeah, I need to leave. This island is dangerous. I need to leave. So you can reference the apple and the acid, and then this island also provided Pi with a false sense of hope. So imagine, he's on the lifeboat with RP for more than 100 days now, and finally he gets to this island, and this island, it he gets off and it provides him with water and with meerkats and with, excuse me, and with plants as well. and he's obviously very relieved because he's drinking the water and he's eating and he's eating and he's eating and he's eating. And as he's eating, he is regaining his hope and his strength. He even called Richard Parker from the lifeboat. And Parker was also eating. Parker was eating the meerkats. And they are eating and they're drinking the water. And they are regaining their energy and their strength. But because of the human tooth and because of the acid at night, they realized that, yay, let's leave because this island is dangerous, it's evil, and it provided them with a false sense of hope. Okay, very easy. 9.6, refer to lines 13 to 14, the noise of ellipses of the boat. Explain why Pi's reaction might be regarded as ironic. Okay, so again, you have to read, you have to go up and read. But the answer here is that, number one, it's ironic because Pi spent most of his time on the lifeboat, right? So he adapted to the conditions on the lifeboat. Then he obviously got off the lifeboat onto the island, and when he got back onto the lifeboat, he was uncomfortable and unsettling. And this is ironic because one would assume that he was able to adapt. So he was on the lifeboat, he went off the lifeboat, got back on the lifeboat, and was so traumatized and unsettling and uncomfortable being on the lifeboat. That's the ironic part there. Okay, 9.7. Refer to line 8. I could not abandon RP. Discuss the significance or importance of Pi's decision not to abandon. So, why did Pi not abandon RP? Very easy. Number one, you can say that they formed a bond, not a house bond, a brotherly bond. Okay? Even if you say that, you get one mark. They formed a bond. Then you can say influenced by Islam. They formed a bond influenced by Islam. They formed a companionship. They were able to coexist and they were codependent on each other. That is why Pi could not abandon him. He called Richard Parker because they formed a bond, they formed a companionship influenced by Islam, they formed a sense of brotherhood, they coexisted and they were codependent on each other. And you can obviously, state why they were codependent. So Pi relied on Parker. Pi relied on Parker for security and protection, and Parker relied on Pi for food, and therefore we have what we call a symbiotic relationship. Okay. You can even go on to say, that by being able to coexist with an animal, Pi establishes his sense of humanity. He establishes his sense of humanity influenced by religion, of course. Okay. 9.8, refer to line 17. The sea was heavy, the sky was grey. Critically discuss how the description of the sea parallels moments in Pi's life. Okay, so I mean, this question is, I've seen this question before, but they mention in that question Pi's state of mind. So all you have to do, you have to read the sea was heavy, the sky was grey, right? That is metaphorical, and link that to Pi's feeling or his description. Okay, so you can say that the heavy implies a deep sense of despair and hopelessness. The grey reinforces the idea of losing hope and being depressed. Then you can say why losing his family, being alone, experiencing traumatic events. For example, the death of orange juice, the death of the zebra, even Richard Parker killing the hyena. And because of this, Pi struggles to be optimistic. So the sea was heavy. The heavy implies a deep sense of despair and hopelessness. Gray can also refer to losing hope and being depressed. You mentioned why. You must provide context. A family's death, being alone, experiencing the atrocities on the lifeboat. He struggles to be optimistic, and this is what you do. It's quite easy. Please don't write about the ocean being heavy. Don't write about the ocean and the conditions. Don't write about the sky being gray, it's going to rain. That's not what we want here. It's a metaphor, and you have to link the metaphor to the context. So the sea was heavy. Heavy is symbolic. The sky was gray. Gray is symbolic of hopelessness, despair, dejection, all these, pessimistic words. Okay, very easy. But for 4 marks, the first mark will be a deep sense of despair. Second mark will be hopelessness. Third mark could be death of his family, being alone. Fourth mark will be he struggles to be optimistic. Okay, struggles to have hope because of his adverse circumstances. Thank you so much, man. I hope you guys are making notes, and if I speak too fast, you can obviously, adapt your recorder and listen slowly and do whatever you need to do. But I think this is important, and I hope you guys are learning as well. Okay, thank you. Please subscribe, please like, comment, and I'll see you on the other side. Cheers.